Yesterday we got this formwork built up for the next level of concrete.
We want to make sure that all the voids are filled with gravel. I often use blocks of wood to hold the stones flat up against the formwork. I repeat the process of adding concrete and smoothing it out. We use a mixture of sizes and shapes.
You come and go like a monsoon rain. You hide and show like a lightning bolt. You have it all.
Yesterday we got this formwork built up for the next level of concrete. It ties into the leftover split face hollow block from the wall behind us there. We're also got to do a bit of brickwork today to finish off this area by adding a frame along here. I couldn't do that at the time because I'd be stepping on my bricks, so it was easier to let them set up. Then we'll just add these in. Then we're going to be putting a creative slab in the middle here inside this brick frame that the property owner's designing. Going to use various objects to imprint in it, make something creative and pretty, just to do something fun, because in backyard designs there's no rules really, as long as you can build it strong enough so it's not going to fall down or fail on you. You can do whatever you want. Finally got a sunny day. This is the middle of winter right now in Gippsland. It's been a bit of a slog, a lot of rain and cold, but today we've got a nice sunny day, so let's enjoy the process and get some stone in this thing.
Before we add more stones for the next course of this wall, we want to make sure that all the voids are filled with gravel. We want to fill the front cracks of the stones so the concrete doesn't ooze through and stain the front of our stones. I push the gravel into these cracks with my spatula, creating a solid base the concrete won't penetrate. I use my hose to wash in the loose gravel and help compact it even further. Washing the gravel exposes any voids that I need to fill extra gravel in. I keep repeating the process of adding gravel, washing it in, until we get a really solid gravel base. When the voids are completely filled, I wash it down one last time to remove any loose gravel off our concrete foundation. Then we're ready to start adding our next layer of stone. I often use blocks of wood to hold the stones flat up against the formwork. I wedge them behind the stones up against the back of the formwork, firmly but gently. I need them to be strong enough to not fall away as I'm pouring concrete behind them. Here you can see I've got quite a number of the stones held in place by these scraps of wood. On the corner of the wall, I've had to align these stones exactly flush with the hollow block. On the next course, I'm going to be adding a corner split face block right on this corner, segueing into our stone. This is what the split face cornerstone looks like in the final wall. I always do one final check of the formwork before we start our concrete. I lightly rinse down the whole wall, as this is going to help the concrete stick to the stone in the previously poured concrete. We start the pour with our specialised concrete mix that has pigment, some extra mortar and bondcrete to help it bond to the stone. I thoroughly agitate this coloured mix in between all the cracks of the stones. This is a really important step to do properly, as this is what holds the whole wall together. I work my way across the whole front of the wall, adding concrete and agitating it in thoroughly until we get enough depth to start adding our steel components. Here I'm adding a steel picket, which I have to be careful about threading it under the wood blocks that are holding our stones in place. Once the steel picket's bedded in the concrete, we add more concrete on top to fill over it. I agitate the concrete around this steel picket. I want to remove any air bubbles. We want the steel to be able to set really solidly inside the wall, as this is where some of the primary strength of the wall lies. When the concrete's filled close to the top of our form, I can add one last row of stones to bring it up flush to the formwork. When the stones are set in place flat against the form, I backfill them with our grey concrete mix. I'm working my way along the wall, filling everything as I go, so the concrete can be up to the height of our formwork. Here I'm plugging a small gap between the stones with a combination of gravel, some pigmented concrete, and then backfilling it with the grey concrete. I repeat the process of adding concrete and smoothing it out. We're about halfway along the wall at this point. Here I'm patching a gap between the stones with a small stone. The idea is for us to end up with a really flat slab. I finish off this layer of the wall by adding some steel pegs. I'm using some recycled heavy steel pipe. I push it into the concrete about 100 mil, then we smooth it off with the trowel. This will ensure the final layer of this wall is bonded and connected to the bottom layers. While the concrete sets up on our flat front wall, we're going to move our attention to the curved wall. We're going to be adding another layer of stone to the curved wall, just like we did with that straight wall. I've completed a form around the curve using the foundation as a guide for the timbers to be set up against. This will create a curved flat wall in the finished process. I'm adding some timbers to the back of our form. This will set the thickness of the wall. These timbers don't have to be set perfectly. In the finished wall, they'll be all covered with dirt backfill. The idea is to have them strong enough to create a bit of structure as we pour the concrete. I then fill in near the voids on the stone with our gravel as we did before, and then start placing the next layer of stones. I'm using the same process I've used throughout all the stone walls in this garden. We use a mixture of sizes and shapes and sit them snugly together, flat up against the formwork. Sometimes we use a smaller stone to fill the gap. The really small gaps will be filled with the gravel. We just work our way along the formwork, joining each stone together. And because I can see the previous course of stones underneath, I try and cross over any gaps. This helps give the wall a classic dry stone wall look. I add scrap timber props where needed to keep the stones flat up against the form. And once the whole row's laid out, then we're ready to start adding concrete. We start the concrete backfill by wetting all the stone and concrete foundation down, and then add our coloured concrete mix as we did before. The only thing different about filling up this curved part of the wall compared to the other part of the wall is having to work under this tree. It does add a certain difficulty to this process. The advantage is having a mature tree in place around your hardscape form walls. Trees can take a long time to grow, so by having a mature one that you build around is a real advantage in the landscape architecture aspect of this project. So it's worth the extra effort working through the difficulties of building around this citrus tree, because we'll end up with a really good end result. I'll let this freshly poured part of our wall set up over the weekend. Then we'll be raising the form one last time to finish this wall off. I need to prepare some of our recycled steel elements for the last course of this wall. Here I'm cutting this galvanized mesh into strips that'll add a lot of strength to this last course of the wall. After raising the formwork to its final position, we wet the whole system down as we've been doing throughout this entire project. Making sure all your materials are wet before you add concrete or mortar is critical. This will help them bond and join together properly. We're completing this last course in the wall with the same process we've been using throughout. After wetting everything down, we add the coloured mortar and push it into the cracks of all the stones, followed by our standard grey concrete mix as the general backfill that adds strength to the wall, adding in scrap pieces of concrete to help hold the stones in place, inserting our steel elements, and just continuing to fill the wall till we get to the top of our form.
Another rainy afternoon, I don't know what I'm to do. I just miss you more than anything. It's way too quiet in the house, I'm just wasted on the couch. Guess I don't wanna feel anything. Wish you'd stayed here beside me. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Wish you'd stayed here right with me. I can't shake that feeling that we said goodbye too soon.
I'm adding this galvanized mesh we cut up earlier into the top part of this wall. This is really going to help hold together the top of the wall, which is always a bit more vulnerable to cracking. Unfortunately, the weather went against us right at the end of this part of our process. I wasn't able to film me filling in the very top of the wall due to heavy rain, but this is what we ended up with once I was finished. I continued adding stones until we got to the top of our formwork. Then I filled in between the stones with gravel, as we've done on a lot of the walls on this particular project.
We got completely rained off. We'll be able to patch it up later with a bit of cement and some extra rocks.
Join me in my next episode as we pull the formwork off this wall, see how it turned out, and finish up the border of our gravel pathway.
I know the hour's getting late. I shouldn't sit here and contemplate. I just can't stop thinking about it. I won't forget a single thing, from drunken nights to Sunday mornings, and how you smile at me. Wish you'd stayed here beside me. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Wish you'd stay here right with me. I can't shake that feeling that we said goodbye too soon.
Thanks for joining me this week on my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.